Hey guys, two quick things before we start. First thing is, in your last lecture, I was kind of muttering to myself about how the handout had parallel fits in it, and I was really embarrassed. So the handout that you had, because I'm filming these about 2 weeks early, is different than the one that I used in the lecture, not in any way that would affect what we were actually talking about, but the way that it's different is there's a little blurb in there that says that while I was trying to fix it, I realized that if you resolve the Neapolitan correctly, as in 6 goes to sharp 6 goes to 5, and flat 2 goes to 1, all that fun stuff, and the quartile seventh of the 7/7 functions the way it should, you're going to get parallel fits. That's just the way it's going to be. I can't find anybody who can tell me anything different, so we're just going to roll with it. Sorry if it was a little confusing. Happy to answer questions during office hours about that. So for today, it's an analysis day again, and I'm going to do the same thing I did last week, in that I'm going to ask you to listen to the piece before you come back. So there is a link to a recording on Blackboard, and I'll also post the same link in the description section of the YouTube video. So go ahead and put me on pause and go listen to the piece. It's about 3 minutes long. And then when you come back, I will have the score up, which is your handout for the day. I'll have the score up and we'll be ready to go. So go give it a listen. As you're listening, just jot down anything that sounds cool, maybe mark out cadences and key areas as you hear them, and we'll get rolling once you come back. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I do. The piece is gorgeous. As you'll see from the score in front of you, it was originally written for violin and piano. Cellists play it quite a lot. I actually found a version for saxophone and piano that was not as weird sounding as I thought it was going to be. So if you want to go perusing, you can find some pretty cool recordings of this. So we're going to listen to little chunks and talk a little bit. I'm just going to play through the first repeat. And I want to know a couple of things. So we got some interesting harmonies. I'd like to know how you might want to label this one and this one. This one's the same as that. And I would also like to know where we cadence at the first repeat. So we get a lovely pack, but in what key? So this is just from the beginning through the first repeat. Here you go. All right, so let's talk a little bit. If you haven't already, try and work out some Roman numerals for those chords that I circled. And if you need a second, put me on pause and work those out. So if we're looking at this first harmony, then we have one chromatic pitch. We are in E flat major to start. So if our chromatic pitch is C flat, then that is, in terms of scale degrees, a flat 6, which we saw a lot last week when we were talking about modal mixture. So let's find a root and a quality of this harmony. Here it is if you want ears on it. So that should give you some info on the quality. So it is minor. And the root, if you rearrange it, is A flat. So if we are in E flat major, start on tonic, how would you label that A flat minor triad? It's a mixture chord. It's still built off of diatonic scale degree 4. The quality has just been altered, so you have a nice minor 4 chord. Now it is in third inversion, so it is a 6/4. You know, we say about triads, they're not in 6/4 position except for very specific circumstances, and this is one of them. So what type of 6/4 then would you call this triad, judging by what's going on around it? And if your answer to that was a pedal 6/4, you are correct. So we go from tonic to a pedal 6/4 back to tonic. And now it looks like we have the same altered pitch here. We have another flat 6, but we added someone to the harmony. So now, rather than it being an A flat minor harmony, we have an addition that then moves to A flat. And if you look at the violin / cello line, you get your A flat here. So this builds you a nice, lovely 7th chord. I'll play it just in a stacked. So we get a lovely 2 chord built off of F. And what's the quality of that? If you've got F, A flat, C flat, now gives you a diminished triad, but you've got a minor 7th on the outside. So your 7th chord is now half diminished. And what position label would you put that in? If F is the root, E flat is in the bass, it's going to give you a 4/2. And again, that E flat is just kind of pedal city all through there. So right out of the gate, right off the bat, we get these 2 really, really lovely mixture harmonies. We're using flat scale degree 6 both times. So you start on tonic. There's your 4, back to tonic. There's your 2, back to tonic. And then we get this nice suspension. There's your dominant. And look, again, it's actually the E flat that is your suspension. 4, 3, to bring you back to tonic. So opening phrase is really, really lovely. We're automatically initiated into this use of flat 6, which comes back to do some pretty cool stuff later on. The other thing I asked you about was where we cadence at the end. So at the first ending, we get a really lovely cadence, but it is actually not in the key we started in. So scan around and see, we have one other altered pitch that comes in the second system. And it is this B natural right here. So can you take a second and come up with a root and quality to that harmony? And then maybe consider what a good label would be for it. And we might have some different answers in terms of that label. But go ahead and work that out. And then come on back. And we're actually going to sing through, if you're able, and play through this a little bit. So what you have here for a root is G. The quality is dominant. And it is in its first inversion. So G dominant, you're expecting it to go to some flavor of a C, which in fact it does. And if you scan down, we actually just stay there and we get a lovely pack at the first repeat in C minor. So let's maybe consider how we get there. And again, I'm looking sideways while I play, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to go from the mezzo forte right here in the second system. I'm just going to play the piano part for right now. If you want to hum the melody over, you're very welcome to, and I will do that as well in a second. Right now, I'm just going to give you the just the accompaniment from that mezzo forte. So really, really clear 5/7 to 1 at the very end of this phrase, right? So very clearly we've moved to C minor. Let's talk a little bit about how we get there. If you're able, do sing the melody on a neutral syllable or solfege or numbers. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to tell anyways. Sing it however you can. And I'll hum along a little bit too for parts of it to kind of draw your attention to what I'm talking about. So it's from the same spot, from the mezzo forte. Da, 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 da. Here's dominant again. New tonic. What happens here? Cool chord. 5/7. And our cadence. So what I think is really interesting and what I want to kind of draw your attention to is, so here's our first hint, right? That we are jumping ship. And what did we talk about when we first learned modulation to the dominant? Is we find our sharp 4 chord for modulating for the dominant. We find that chromatic chord and back up one, and that works as our pivot. So let's back up one chord and see how we would label this in E flat. So this is the harmony I'm talking about. The root is G, and the quality is minor. So it's a little bit of an unusual harmony, perhaps, not one that we see a whole lot, but if we're in E flat major, we would call that then G, gives it Roman numeral 3, and it's in first inversion. It actually gets weirder when we try and label that in C minor, because we actually have an instance of a dominant that does not have a leading tone. So if we were to label that in C minor, it'd be a minor 5 in first inversion. It doesn't look really pretty. It's not like my favorite pivot chord modulation ever. And part of that reason, I think, is I don't think the essence of this modulation is the pivot chord. I think the essence of it is this guy. So the melody stays on that G, and the harmony underneath goes from G minor to that G dominant, and that's what sets us into C minor. So from the beat before, the sorry, I forget sometimes that you can't see me pointing like an idiot. So the E flat major triad in first inversion. So from here, here you are on your G, so, 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 re, mi, re, do. So that G is your thread that connects those two harmonies. Everything underneath shifts just a little bit, and all of a sudden there we are in our new key. The last thing I want to say about that is I want to bring your attention back to the very first measure. So second chord of the piece, we get what might be kind of a surprise in this flat 6, kind of right out of the gate, we get a chromatic pitch. Now I want you to follow me in my purple line as we go down and find ourselves the next important chromatic pitch in this piece, which is our B natural. Now, as you're sitting there watching me, I want you to think about something absolutely brilliant that you can tell me about the relationship between these two pitches. So we've got mode mixture in E flat major with our flat 6, and that C flat gets respun and turned into a B natural not even like 8 bars later, and that B natural is our new leading tone, and that's what pushes us into C minor. So it's really cool kind of larger scale connection between those two chromatic pitches that I think is kind of neat. As I was singing the last time, which I'm sure was thrilling for everybody, I did say that there was a cool harmony in this third system. So I'm going to bring you to bar 8. Measure numbers are on the bottom here. I'm going to bring you to bar 8, which harmonically is the same as measure 7. And then I want to know what's happening on the downbeat of measure 9. So work out the root and the quality and inversion of that harmony and give me a label for it, please. And while you're doing that, I will happily play you from bar 8 to the cadence in case that's helpful. So here's your 5, 6, 5. So I'm going to isolate that harmony. Here's what it sounds like. That should at least give you quality, right? That is a nice, lovely major triad. Who is the root? Hopefully you have written down that it is D flat. And if we are in C minor, D flat is what scale degree? It is 2, but it's altered. So we have a nice, clear, beautiful Neapolitan, flat 2, 6, to bring us into that cadence. Okay, so that's cool part number 1. Cool part number 2, I'm going to start the recording from bar 12, so bottom system of the first page. And when we get to the second page, I want to know something absolutely brilliant about what is going on in those top 3 measures of the second page. Again, I'm going to start the recording from measure 12, just so you get a little bit of a lead in, but I want to know what's going on in the top system of the second page. This is from measure 12. Okay, if you need to go back and listen again, by all means, go ahead. But we're gonna go ahead and throw a label on what happened at the top of the second system. So we had a direct modulation back to E flat. So we're back in E flat major. I'm just gonna go ahead and play again the accompaniment. So if you want another pass at it, here it is. So this is from measure 16, top of the page. Sorry. And we're actually going to talk about that in a second, which is right after the green bracket. Let's isolate the bass line, yeah? If you don't already have an answer for me. Hopefully, some of you or all of you are confidently saying that A, we have a sequence here. That's first and foremost. Now, of course, I'm likely going to ask you to tell me which sequence it is. So here's our model. Remember, your models and copies are each going to be 2 harmonies. Now, I don't want you to fuss so much with the quality of these harmonies because they're a little gnarly. They're extended chords. We have some 7ths, we have some 9ths going on in there. I just need to know if these harmonies are in root position or not. That's really all you're going for, all I really need to know. Or if you just remember the pattern from our lectures a million years ago during week 7 on sequences, that'll also give you a clue. So if you need to, pause me and go find your handouts and work it out. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and jump ahead. So we have this pattern, which is going down by 5th. And then from model to copy, we are also going down by step So we have a lovely descending fifths, or circle of fifths, as some people call it, sequence. What I think is especially cool is how we get out of it. So if we are going to talk kind of root and quality and what's happening here, the harmonies are beautiful and they're really colorful. We have an F minor 7 chord here that goes to what is, it sounds like a B flat dominant with a ninth, right? So you've got B flat, D, A flat, and then there's a C in there. So this really cool B flat dominant that has a ninth pinned on it. It's kind of just suspended over, right? And then we do the same thing again. We get an E flat 7, and then we get an A flat. This time it's got a major 7th, and it's also got a 9th on it. We get a D half diminished 7th. All of this is incidental. It's not super important. What is important is that we get chromatic pitch here. So last time we talked about sequences in week 7, we solely really worked with diatonic sequences. This chromatic pitch, it should look familiar. It's the B natural / C flat from on the first page. And it actually does the same thing as it did in its first B natural iteration, which is turns this into a dominant harmony. Now, why is that interesting? I mean, it might not be, but listen to where it goes. So here it is. And I want you to tell me what this sounds like. And I'll play it again. So here's your dominant. What type of cadence is that? If you need to figure out the root and quality of the harmony after the green bracket, do that and that'll help you. The root of this harmony is A flat. It is A flat major. So G7 going to A flat. We did this a little bit with Ich Grolle nicht last Friday. It's deceptive cadence motion. It's not in E flat major. It's actually in C minor in this instance, but it's deceptive motion. So we get this 5, 7 to 6 sound. Interestingly enough, we could probably even, because of the violin, I think that this motion, this sounds like a deceptive cadence to me. Even with the F there, which someone might come for me and say it's not right, but it sounds like a deceptive cadence to me. And this is the first time we've gotten this as a diatonic harmony. We've had flat 6 in that harmony every other time. So this is our first time actually just getting it in its diatonic form. Now, I want to know how you are going to label this harmony. This is the other really cool spot. So work out the root and quality. We are in E flat major. So once you work out the root and quality, then I do want a Roman numeral label for it. I'll play a smidge for you if you want to just kind of hear what it's doing. So this is coming from the beat before. So it's the very end of the first system. You're on a cadential 6/4. So I'll play just that harmony for you so you can hear it in isolation. So give me a root for that and a quality, please. So as you're rearranging it, again, if you need more time, just pause me. You guys you have a great opportunity to just shut me up at will these days. So like, just pause me. You couldn't do that when we were live. So if you need an extra second, pause me. But you should eventually come out with the answer that the root of this is E natural, and the quality of it is fully diminished 7. Now, I've said this over and over. I write it on a lot of your homeworks. If it is a fully diminished seventh chord, it's a 7 of somebody. They don't just float around unattached this semester. Next semester they might. But right now, it's a 7 of somebody. So 7, fully diminished 7. If the root is E natural, how does it want to resolve? It's acting as scale degree 7. It's acting as the leading tone. So it wants to resolve then up by half step. So it wants to resolve to some flavor of an F. Lo and behold, it does, right? We have a nice F minor triad that follows it up. So if we are an E flat major, F minor gets a 2. We have a 7, fully diminished 7 of 2. And then it goes to 2, 6, 5 at the tail end of the measure. Now, this is probably my favorite part of the piece. I think it's really, really beautiful. I'm also going to call your attention to, so we've had a couple of cool chromatic harmonies. We had the flat 6 that infiltrated right out of the gate, right? And that C flat came back, spun itself into a B natural and turned into our gateway into C minor. Once we got into C minor, we had this Neapolitan right before the big cadence. So our Neapolitan introduced us to D flat. Now coming back to this, we're back in E flat major. We get a reappearance of our B natural here, right? And then our D flat comes back. So this is the same pitch that gave us the Neapolitan. Now it's back, reimagined in the context of now E flat major. So both of our cool pitches have done work in both E flat major and C minor and done very different work with very different affects. So we get the D flat first as part of this Neapolitan that kind of brightens up our C minor sound. And now we get it as the chordal 7th of an applied 7 chord that adds so much tension to what's going on in the music at that moment. So this D flat we can track all the way back to measure, 13 is it? Nope, measure 9. So we can connect those two chromatic pitches, the C flat / B natural and the D flat, across the piece. So the microcosmic analysis of this piece is really cool. It packs a ton of stuff into a relatively short span. But if you zoom out just a little bit, you can make these really cool long connections that thread the piece together in a really lovely way. Okay, let's talk about your homework and then you guys will be on your way. So I'm gonna hop over to the keynote and then you guys will be set for the day. All right, so as you can see, I got very excited about the analysis day thing again. The most important thing for you is homework 19, soft due date of Monday the 20th. The reason I wanted to pair this homework with this particular day is it's an analysis heavy homework. It's an excerpt from an art song. It's got some funky harmonies in it. They're all harmonies that you know, but you have to be really, really careful with accidentals. And I ask you kind of a more affective question at the end of the analysis. So kind of what we talked about with the Schumann last Friday. So more analysis heavy homework because we did so much sort of nitty gritty part writing and things with the last assignments. So that is due on the 20th. And so now you've got the Neapolitan under your belt. And starting next week, we're going to introduce the last group of chromatic predominance. And that's actually those are the last new harmonies that you learn for the semester. So by the end of next week, you're going to have a pretty full harmonic arsenal. You've pretty much at that point learned all of the harmonic stuff that you're going to learn for the semester. So that's pretty exciting. You guys are into a cool spot in the curriculum. So as always, hit me up during office hours or at other times for help and to chat. And I hope you guys are all doing well and stay safe, wash your hands, all that fun stuff. And I will see you on Monday.